All right, everybody, good morning. What's going on? PT on Ice Thursday. Jeff Moore here, thrilled to be with you. Rocking my Brazil jersey. Wanted to give a shout out to my new Brazilian friends and colleagues who hooked me up with this jersey and gave me such an awesome experience last weekend when I was out there. So big shout out to those guys. Not sure if they've adopted PT on Ice yet, but if they have, I hope they appreciate seeing the jersey here live on the show. So guys, on Tuesday, we went really deep into sleep, right? And talked about the relationship between sleep and pain. And it got pretty heavy and objective and talked about a lot of research and how that's relevant to patient care. But I want to now go the other direction, zoom all the way out, and at the risk of almost getting a little bit self-helpish on you, I want to talk about something that I see a lot that I think can be a target for many of us to improve our overall satisfaction. Not only our professional satisfaction, but our satisfaction everywhere in life. And see what you guys make out of it, and see if you can't put it to some use. So as I'm traveling around and doing more and more mentoring, not only individual mentoring now, but actually working with groups and systems and trying to help, get their train back on the tracks and get morale back up and looking at how the employees feel about what they're doing at work. And as I dive into that and unpack it, what I find is there's quite a bit of dissatisfaction out there. So there's a lot of folks who aren't feeling as valued as they wish they were. And that shows up, of course, in morale and then, of course, in performance. And I think it needs to be unpacked and dissected a bit. And I'll tell you what I find as I dig into this. What I find is that a lot of people, I think, overvalue their role in the organization, or maybe even in the profession as a whole, right? So they overvalue their niche or what they bring to the table, right? So you think about, in our profession, the different roles that you can play. I mean, you can be somebody who is absolutely incredible at dissecting research. You can be somebody who is incredible at translating that research to the general public. Right? You can be someone who's incredible at working one-on-one with patients. You can be an incredible marketer. There's a lot of different ways that you can thrive and be excellent inside of our profession, inside of your individual organization, right? But what I find is that a lot of people overvalue what their strong suit is relative to all the other working parts. And the first thing I want to say is that is totally natural behavior, right? Like that is totally natural because as you're developing your skills, right, as you're trying to kind of make your place, if you will, it's important that you reinforce to yourself that what you're doing matters, right? On those long nights where you really want to hang it up, right, or you're just exhausted in school and you're trying to make it through, you need to reinforce to yourself there is significant value in what I'm doing, right? And so that reinforcement, not only to yourself, right, from a competitive survival standpoint, you want other people around you to recognize the value in what you do, right? If you're going to be a well-paid team member, right, you need to convince other people that what you're bringing to the table matters. So because of these things, we are always naturally reinforcing our own position that what we do matters a lot, right? Maybe even matters too much, because the problem comes, and where I begin to see the issue is that a really well-ran organization, a really well-put-together team, is one where the value and the importance is spread out relatively evenly across team members, right? So many of you know one of my favorite sayings of all time is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? And the reason I love it is because I think it's so true. And the reason I think it's so true is that when you have a well-put-together team, indeed, the sum of the unique attributes of everybody individually on the team is greater, right, than that of the individual parts. That is the beauty of a well-oiled machine, a well-put-together team, is that everybody's individual value, everybody's unique assets, when cumulated, when summated, create something far better than what any of the individual parts had to offer. That's why if you want to really do something, make substantial change and really affect a system, really affect a purpose, it's best done as a team. If you want to go far, go together, right? And having having that value spread out, right, and relatively evenly is a well-oiled machine. If you guys didn't have a chance, it rings a bell, but if you read Ash James's work, so Ash James is a physio out of the UK, his website is called resiliencephysio.com. But he's got great blogs, and Ash is just a great dude in general. But his most recent blog talked about what do you do here, or what's your job here, right? And I loved it. He talked about JFK going to NASA back in '61 and interviewing some of the employees and asking everybody, what is it you do here? In one instance, talking to a janitor, right, and saying, what's your job here? And the janitor saying, to put a man on the moon, right? And I love that answer. Because that is somebody who is embracing that what I have is one, right, a small but significant role in achieving a greater purpose. And I love that about teams. But you can begin to see the issue that if a well-oiled machine, if a well-ran team, right, is where the value is spread out relatively evenly. But if you, for example, have spent years or maybe even decades reinforcing that what you do is particularly valuable, you can appreciate that oftentimes an asymmetry begins to develop between how much value you bring to the team and what your value actually is. Meaning that oftentimes we overvalue or we over-reinforce our position and believe it's a bit more valuable maybe than what everybody else is bringing to the table. And then that asymmetry between how valuable we believe we are and how valuable we actually are as a team, right? That asymmetry creates a lot of discontent. Right? It creates this feeling of chronically feeling a little bit undervalued, right? So that discontent that I think can be quite persistent, right? Because there's really no worse feeling than you feeling like you're bringing a little more value than everybody else in the group feels you're bringing, right? Everyone feels it's even. You feel yours is particularly valuable or important. That asymmetry is a nightmare. Right? And it's going to lead every day to you feeling like, geez, the folks around here just really don't see the value I'm bringing, right? And that will gnaw at you, right? And it really takes away some of that thrive that we're all shooting for. So what's the solution? So if this problem is out there, what is the solution? Well, there's two sides to the equation, right? So if the issue is you feeling that what you're bringing is a bit more valuable than what the group feels that you're bringing, there's two ways you can manipulate that. You can either reduce the value that you believe you're bringing, or you can elevate the value that you believe everybody else is bringing. The answer is never, you guys, to think less of yourself. Like that's not the message this morning, right? Is the goal is to think less of yourself, because the confidence and the importance that you believe exists in your role, that is critical to exude to be able to get the job done. The answer then is the other side of the equation. Right? The answer then is to begin to feel more of others. Right? In other words, is to begin becoming fascinated by the strengths of those around you. Right? Because if you begin to increase the value that you see in everybody else, that begins to level these scales. Right? All of a sudden, if you start believing that what the people around you are doing are absolutely incredible, right? Now that equation becomes more balanced, or maybe even lopsided in the other direction, where you begin to feel like, yeah, I mean, I'm bringing something important, but man, what these other folks are bringing is simply incredible, right? And now when people start saying, hey, you know, you're doing a great job, you're like, well, geez, yeah, thanks. I do believe I'm doing a solid work, but God, look at what you're doing, right? And that is the secret sauce and the magic sauce to individual satisfaction and to team growth and thriving, right? So how do you make that step? Because it's a really big one, right? I mean, how do you take this step from reinforcing the value of yourself, which you've been doing your whole life, right? And that has been very important to do to be able to get you to where you are. How do you take that step from reinforcing the value of yourself to focusing on the value that others bring and reinforcing the value of others? I would say the ability to take that step is probably the single greatest variable in whether or not you can go from good to great in your professional life. Because it completely changes the way that you function on that team. And the key is, folks, you have to be deliberate about it, because it's not our habit. Our habit is to reinforce ourselves. That is protective. That is survival, right? That is good. That is how you got where you are. But the switch, the leveling up mechanism is to turn from reinforcing the value of yourself to really reinforcing the value of others. So because it's not our habit, it's not the natural thing to do. It's definitely higher cerebral thinking. It's upper level cortex thinking. We are moving away from the brainstem, right? And we are moving to higher regions. We're moving away from simple individual survival to appreciating the power of the team and caring more about the community than we do about our individual self. Now, it's simply higher level thinking, and it's not reflexive. So to do it, to make the change, you have to be deliberate, right? Because it's going to take some effort. And I honestly recommend, and I apologize if this sounds like a self-help book right now, but I honestly recommend stopping and pausing next time you have some free time and thinking about the individuals that you're working with and cataloging their unique strengths, right? So really go around and think about your crew and think about what are their unique strengths. In particular, what are their unique strengths that you don't have? Now, here's where it gets really hard. The goal is not to then be able to build those strengths in yourself. It is simply to appreciate them in the other person. And that's where it gets tough because we are so competitive by nature. We are so survival oriented that we want to say, well, if they're strong there, I can be strong there. That is not the goal. The goal is to leverage our individual strengths to create a sum that is greater than the individual parts. The goal to understanding that value equation and to be comfortable in it and to feel deeply valued is to be able to recognize the great things other people are doing and then don't try to take that from them, simply acknowledge that in them. And if you can acknowledge it out loud, it's that much more powerful. The challenge, of course, is that takes you dropping your guard because you're now acknowledging that what somebody else is doing is extraordinarily valuable and that you aren't able to do it. Right? So your ability to say to somebody, you know, hey, I can't believe you were able to do that. Like that was so critical to us being successful. And man, that is something I never would have been able to do. Right? That's the kind of thinking that we're talking about. Honestly, looking at the folks around you and saying, that is incredible that that person can do that they have that skill set. Like that is so foreign to me. I would never be able to do it. But if they couldn't do it, we would never have the success that we have as a team. If you can begin to individually look at the folks that you're working with that are on your team and feel that way about them, and better yet, acknowledge that to them, right? Like I just want to say, I can't believe you've got that skill. Like it's so valuable for us. Lord knows I don't have it, but you having it is a huge deal to this organization. Right? That is when you are officially beginning to level up. Now, many of you will say, as you're doing that, right, you're changing that equation. Because remember, the asymmetry of discontent was there because you felt that your value was higher than your actual value on the team. You felt that your value was preferentially high when really it was even. But what you've done now is you've escalated the value of those around you in your eyes. So now you've unbalanced the equation, but in the favor that creates a lot of satisfaction and a lot of happiness because you're feeling like you're bringing something important, but everybody else is incredible as well. And that equation becomes one that creates a lot of ease inside and a lot of satisfaction and honestly, a lot of happiness. It's a wonderful feeling to look around and be amazed by folks around you. It's a wonderful feeling to be willing to be in that spot where you look up to the people that you're working with and you acknowledge that, right? It takes dropping your guard. It takes moving from brainstem to higher brain levels. But if you can do it, creates a tremendous amount of satisfaction and creates a very, very high functioning team. So many of you will say, Jeff, how does this relate to patient care? Well, here's how I think it ties in, right? As I continue my obsessive search for what is it about the people seeing patients who are regularly and consistently reducing disability and pain at a very, very rapid level. What is it about people who are extremely effective in the clinic? What is different about them compared to everybody else? So I'm constantly wondering this. And as I travel around and mentor, as I'm looking at outcome data and I'm trying to correlate that to clinical behavior, I'm always trying to answer that question. Well, undeniably, one of the biggest ones is people who get outstanding patient outcomes are amazing at authentically celebrating the small victories of their patient. Right? Like they really wear their heart on their sleeve, right? They make it very noticeable and they legitimately are deep down stoked when their patient makes a small step forward, and they celebrate that with the patient. And it's all about the patient. And we know as we talk about therapeutic alliance, we talk about patient expectation, how that correlates to outcome. You as a provider being able to authentically be moved and emotionally moved, right, and committed and excited for the individuals who are taking steps forward, that is going to deepen your therapeutic alliance. Someone believing you're in their corner and really, really committed and involved and engaged, right, that is going to deepen your therapeutic alliance. And as that deepens, your outcomes are going to get better. Well, here's the kicker though. You can't just turn that on. Like, you can't just turn on a switch where you spend the majority of your day reinforcing your own position and trying to convince yourself that you're more valuable than everybody else. And then all of a sudden, when you go into patient care at 2 p.m., all of a sudden you flip a switch and all of a sudden you're somebody who celebrates somebody else more than you. All of a sudden it's about them. Folks, it doesn't work that way. Like, the root of authenticity, right, speaks to the fact that you are who you are all the time. And so if you can become someone who's always celebrating other people, if you can get from brainstem and move higher, right? If you can put your guard down, be vulnerable, and be willing to say, these people around me are amazing, and actually verbally acknowledge that. If that becomes your pattern in life, that's going to become your pattern in patient care. And they're going to feel that authenticity. You're just simply somebody who loves to root for other people. And the more you do that, the deeper your therapeutic alliance gets, the higher your outcomes get, right? So I really believe that it's forming a habit of celebrating other people that completely transforms your professional satisfaction, right? Because now you're so amazed by those around you that equation of value symmetry is in your favor. At the same time, becoming that kind of person and reaping the rewards of professional satisfaction, that also bleeds into patient care. Because the more your habit is to celebrate other people, right, the more they're going to feel that, the more they're going to feel supported, the more they're going to feel encouraged, and all of those emotions invariably lead to increased outcomes. Right? We can't just turn the switch and say, well, I think that this person feeling appreciated would increase their outcomes. So even though I don't usually do that, I'm going to start doing that here for the next hour and then turn that back off. That is not authentic behavior by definition, right? What we want to work on is becoming that person that supports people all the time. And as you do, your professional life and your outcomes are going to go on parallel, and they're going to go on a trajectory that goes north. So think about that a bit. Think about that for those of you who are in leadership. Right? I mean, as you're building your team, right, you are looking for individuals who are going to thrive on a team. Those individuals I have found invariably are those that are willing and openly celebrating other people. Right? Those who don't have that characteristic are always going to feel the urge to break out alone. They're always going to want to go solo because they value what they do more than what everybody else does. So those people are going to be a virus on your team. So when you're building a team, the one thing I would recommend is to look out for other individuals who are celebrating people, particularly celebrating people who are very different from them. That's the last point I'll make, but it's a very important one, because if people are just celebrating folks who are similar to them, all they're really doing is reinforcing that what they do is important, because the other people are doing pretty much the same thing. The gems, the really unique people, are the ones who are willing to celebrate the value in folks that are doing something that is distinctly not only different from what they themselves do, but something they themselves would be unable to do. That is somebody who has dropped their guard. That is somebody who has said, hey, I would never be able to do that. But the fact that you can do that makes us a lot stronger team. That person, my friends, is somebody you want in your club ASAP. That person is glue. That person builds culture. And if you're the kind of leader that can encourage people to be in that safe zone and be willing to drop their guard and become more like this, you are a leader that is creating people who have better professional lives, and you are a leader who is creating a space where people become that way, which results in better patient outcomes. All right, just think about that. It's something I think about all the time. I don't think we celebrate other people enough. I don't think we look at our team members and acknowledge what is uniquely amazing about them openly and honestly and completely in an unguarded fashion. Say that what you're doing is amazing. Wish I had that skill, but I don't really need it because you have it and we're on the same team, right? That ability will dramatically change your professional, personal life. It will dramatically change what you can do for other people. It will create a well-oiled machine. So I hope there's value there. Shoot me up with an email or hit me up on this video. I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts. The one thing I want to mention I just realized our older adult management course, our next online cohort is only 2 weeks away. So Dustin Jones, Christina Previtt, they are ready to rock 8-week online course, right? Where you can jump in and actually learn how to manage your Medicare clientele as seriously and as cutting edge effectively as you're managing everybody else. I continue to feel that older adult is a population that we just don't put that same level of cutting edge thinking into. And what's a shame is all the research is there. We just don't disseminate it either in school enough or in practice enough or collegially enough. Well, Dustin and Christina have certainly put together a class that does that. So if you're seeing a lot of Medicare folks, if you want to know cutting edge evidence on how to manage them, jump into that 8-week online cohort. That's it, guys. Enjoy your day. Kill Clinic. Celebrate those around you. Be willing to celebrate their skills that you don't have that make your team better. And damn it, say it out loud. Own it, and you're going to see some major changes. All right, cheers, guys.